through your freedom.
Cut out the jibber jabber. Don't be babbling like a fool. Say what you got to say. That's all. Then shut your dang pie hole.
Well, hello, preppers. Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. If you are new here, hit subscribe, right? And if you hit subscribe and you're coming back, welcome back. You need to be fully informed. Information is changing, folks. It used to be on kind of like a weekly basis years ago. And then, SHTF, it hit the fan in March of 2020, became a daily issue. And now news changes on the hour. Since our last broadcast, I've got like 30 different news stories that have popped up. I'm just like overwhelmed. And I think that's what they're trying to do, right? That's what a blitz is, or a blitzkrieg, as it was called in World War II. The idea was to send so much force all at once that it would overwhelm the enemy. And that's what the Germans used. They invented that, the blitzkrieg. Well, they're blitzkrieging the shit out of us now, aren't they? Now, how can we fight back? Well, I tell you what, we can fight back by sharing information, by networking. That's where we're at in the process at this time, right? That's where we're at in this process. So this code right here, see that code? That code's a QR code. It helps us network. When you click on that code, it's going to take you to this page. If you share this, you get to that page, it's going to allow you to share that QR code or get the code way up at the top. And let me do this. Way up at the top, you get that address off of that code, right? And it'll tell people exactly how to get more information. So this is where we step in, folks. This is where we get to participate. You need to be prepared. You need food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. You need all that. And then you need to get active, right? You need to prep to action. All right, so let's do this. Let's get into the information. What is this information that's going to help you know more, right? Well, I call this episode Default on the SHTF. What is going on out here? Really, what is going on? Unbelievable. Right? It's looking like Russia may default, folks. That's right. Russia could default. How does that work? Well, Russia owes everyone money. I guess all nations borrow money, one form or fashion or another, right? That's how this game is played. Well, Russia may default. What happens if Russia defaults? What kind of turmoil can that cause? It is a massive potential that could have, shall we say, disastrous effects. Disastrous effects. They don't pay back a bank, that bank fails. They don't pay back that bank, one bank fails, and then another bank fails because of that. A bunch of debt is passed on, a bunch of defaulted debt is passed on to central banks. So it's a big deal when you default and they come get your car or take your house. It's a bigger deal when a business defaults. It's a really big deal, folks, when a major corporation can't pay its bills. But when an entire nation goes broke, look out. In fact, you could say that when a country defaults, that's what happened to the Soviet Union. It collapsed under its own weight. Well, why wouldn't Russia say, well, sorry, we just can't pay our bills? And it pulls in Argentina and just says, we're done, right? You want to cause a calamity on our country. You want to sanction us, kick us out of this, kick us out of that, stop buying our stuff. That sounds like a force majeure problem, doesn't it? That sounds like something bigger than just, well, we're not doing our job. It is going to be a disaster, folks, what is coming. So why should Russia pay its bills? Why should they? After all, folks, Joe Biden, Gigi Biden, has now called Putin a, quote, war criminal after Biden approved sending weaponized drones to the Ukraine. Hello, anyone, right? Sanctions and bombing and assassinations of Iranian leaders. Oh my. Hypocrisy, folks, abounds. How many decades has the Middle East been suffering under the bombings coming out of the Defense Department? Now, they cry that foul. They cry war criminals, right? Even Saddam Hussein, right, who was accused of having weapons of mass destruction, who actually did not, right? Could you say that the actions of the American government and their coalition were those war crimes? Because so many tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, then millions of Iraqis suffered. And then when the United States abandoned ship, pulled out of Iraq, how many people were killed because of that? Right? But Biden is going to call Putin a war criminal after, by the way, giving him a bunch more weapons with which to kill Russians, right? I thought there was this saying out there. You may recognize it. All is fair in love and war. And that means war. All is fair in war, folks. If you win, you get to say what is and isn't fair. So is Biden winning? Is Putin winning? Well, Putin may say, I'm defaulting. I'm not paying you guys back, right? So the rest of the world is going to say what to Putin at this point? They've already tried taking everything away from him, right? But get this, folks. Who's our enemy and who isn't? In order to confront Russia, the United States has had to run to others for oil. They're trying to make an oil deal with Iran. They're trying to make an oil deal with Iraq. Now, at this moment, folks, Biden is poised, the United States government is poised to remove Iran's Revolutionary Guard, right? There's special forces from a terror list. They're going to remove this Iranian special guard, right, from a terror list as part of the nuclear deal they're doing with Iran. Folks, wasn't it the Iranian super duper special forces guard? I believe they were the ones who just took credit for launching missiles at United States property in Iraq. And now they're coming off the terror watch list. I guess the way to come off the terror watch list, to become friends with the United States government and to get special deals, which enrich you, is to actually commit an act of terror. I mean, you look at Antifa and BLM, and what did they do? Right? They burned American cities, billions of dollars in damage, and they were encouraged and even, right, supported. They were bailed out of jail, right? That's amazing. And they're not on a watch list, but, look out, parents. And speaking of BLM, we got a big fat, and I mean a big, ugly, fat whoops-a-daisy there. Well, remember how it was just us? There's no justice for just us, right? Justice for them, justice for just them, folks. Finally, the BLM leader and Boston, folks, by the way, Boston's Woman of the Year, the BLM leader is arrested and indicted on federal charges for squandering $1 million in donations on hotels, a new home, and a Bubba Gump shrimp company. Fascinating, folks, fascinating. I guess people think when you get millions of dollars to run an organization, I don't know, maybe you're supposed to actually do things to promote that organization and grow that organization and whatever that organization is supposed to do. Not necessarily buy a Bubba Gump shrimp company. Unbelievable. That is how this goes, I guess. It's good to see, folks, a little bit of justice happening out there, isn't it? Oh, my God. But, we have to understand the Democrats, folks, while that may be an actual prosecution of criminal actions, right? Politically speaking, this country is in big, big trouble. Folks, Pelosi's sham January 6th committee is looking to track down Republican donors because they want to criminalize Republican fundraising efforts that are linked to election integrity, right? So politically, folks, the American Nazis are conducting witch hunts on Americans now. Maybe they're going to say, well, hey, we pressed charges against BLM leader, so now we need to press charges against other people and try and associate, I guess, real criminal activity with, people standing around waving flags and saying that was not good and even supporting them financially. Kind of like Canada. Canada was trying to say, well, you supported the trucker convoy, so you must be a terrorist. Unbelievable, folks. Unbelievable. And while we're on this topic, treason mania, right? We had the whole Mittens Romney versus Tulsi Gabbard chick fight the other day, right? But everyone is continuing to throw around this word, treason, right? It's like treason mania, like WrestleMania, treason mania. By overusing, folks, the accusation of treason, though, those who are real treasonous politicians are weakening the impact and value of the concept and the accusation. If all things are treasonous, then those who are committing the actual act of treason can hide behind all of those others and say it's not true. It's just one of a million other false accusations out there. Nothing to see here. Move along. Well, our Constitution is being thwarted. Our laws are being ignored. And I'm pretty sure there's some treason going on out there. But, the best place to hide a needle is not in a haystack. The best place to hide a needle is in a stack of needles. All right. And speaking of someone who needs a good needling, we got Hillary Clinton, folks. And she was sanctioned by Putin, right? And she responded to the sanction and said, quote, "I want to thank the Russian Academy for this Lifetime Achievement Award." Remember, folks, Hillary worked the Uranium One deal, giving Russia, United States uranium resources. This sanction makes it look like she isn't part of the U.S. pay-to-play team that was in place during Obama's administration, right? But it really is truly, as far as I'm concerned, a Lifetime Achievement Award for Hillary, right? The crowning achievement. Even her financial allies, right, don't like her. Nobody likes the lady. And I'm using a very loose term by calling her a lady. Now, propaganda, lies, false accusations, right? Will Russia default, or is this another propaganda story, folks? The New York Times says Russia may only have 14 days to win the battle in Ukraine before they are out of supplies. Folks, everything is propaganda. Do you believe yourself, or do you believe the mainstream media? Do you believe the New York Times, who had this story? Folks, if we can't get the truth out about a cold, the flu, or an election, how can we get the facts about a conflict in a nation where the opponent has a no-fly zone we, the United States, NATO has to observe? This conflict is a referendum on our media. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that all we get is lies and propaganda. Biolabs, maternity hospital attacks, nuclear power plant attacks, right? Reactor explosion could be 10 times worse than Chernobyl. Dirty bomb, dirty nuke bomb coming, bioweapon coming, chemical weapons, they're coming. Civilians slaughtered by the thousands, and they weren't. Russians are revolting against Putin in Russia. Really? Anyone? We can't get the facts, folks. That means there's something much bigger going on. Something is being hidden because the truth can't be used. It's always good, I think, that the truth can be used. And that's a good thing when you can point to facts, statistics, right? Well, let's take a look at this. Let's kind of change gears, if we shall. I want to play the guessing game, folks. I think that our government, our media, and science, big science, I think they have defaulted on the truth, right? Guess what, folks? Guesses anyone? The world's number 2 ranked female golfer And Olympic gold medalist Nelly Korda. She's been diagnosed with blood clots. Blood clots. Another super athlete diagnosed with blood clots, huh? Anyone? Anyone? Any guesses?
Hey folks, at the Prepared Mind channel, we take your health very seriously. That's why we recommend the Jim Jones juice. That's right, the Jim Jones juice. Get yourself a can today.
Just the friendly homes of America are always prepared for hospitality. Not only on Thanksgiving Day, but every day all the year around. No matter who comes to call or who happens to drop in.
There's nothing like hitting the Jim Jones juice, laying one down, and feeling that stuff enter your bloodstream. Oh.
Did Bill leave his pop and candy only half eaten? No, sir.
Oh, heart attack! Defibrillator! Clot! Don't forget, call an ambulance when you get your Jim Jones juice, because it's that good.
Oh, yeah, I tell you what, folks. Anyone have some guesses? Are they defaulting on the truth? Are they giving us the truth and the facts, folks? Here we go. 12-year-old girl, folks, in Brazil dies, reportedly due to a heart attack while in her sleep. Anyone have any guesses? Any guesses? You see, sometimes facts, sometimes the truth is unpopular, but it shouldn't be sacrificed. No. Sometimes the leaders should do what is unpopular and tell the truth instead of continuing to lie and doubling and tripling down.
I also want to ask you about the president's mandate. There's so much opposition now.
I understand, and we all understand, how people do not like to be told what to do. They want to make their own choice and their own free will.
Is there any thought of backing off of that?
People do not like to be told what to do, told what to do. They want to make their own choice and their own free will, their own choice.
Backing off.
Free will, their own free will. I get that and I respect that. Free will, I respect that. But these are unusual times. Their own free will, unusual times. I respect that. So I would prefer, and we all would prefer, that people would be voluntarily getting vaccinated, told what to do. But if they're not going to do that, sometimes you've got to do things that are unpopular, but that clearly supersede individual choices. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about requirements.
Maybe there would be a better word besides mandate, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, tyrannical is a better word. How about do what is unpopular and give us the truth? Folks, they're defaulting on the truth, integrity, justice, right? Oh, this just in. Anyone want to guess what it's about? Anyone? Well, an Australian cricket legend, only 52 years old, same age as the Prepared Mind. He died from a massive heart attack. Does anyone want to guess? Anyone? Guesses about what caused the heart attack? Anybody? All right, let's move on. But wait, there's more. Oh, by the way, get your questions into Jolene. This is the 30-minute monologue followed by the 30-minute Q&A. I'm trying to go as fast as I can to pack all the information into this we can. It's been an extremely busy day, lots to do, lots happening. And I know you've got questions. Get them into Jolene now. Okay, let's move on here. Oh, yeah, this just in. An 8-year-old boy in Peru has developed Stevens-Johnson syndrome following his second dose of the Jim Jones juice. Anyone? Guesses? Doubts? Anyone? Have we cast enough shadow, enough question on the Jim Jones juice, right? Or do you think, right, the truth should die here and we should just go with what we're being told? If I can't trust them, folks, over the Jim Jones juice, over the cerveza bug, if we can't trust the government to tell us the truth about inflation, 7.5%, my anus. If we can't trust them, folks, to prosecute criminal behavior and allow constitutional rights to be respected, how can we trust them to do anything for us? It's my case. It's my opinion that we can't trust them. They've defaulted on the truth. They've defaulted on their responsibilities in the government. Truly, folks, truly. Right? NATO is moving ahead with a military drill in Norway, very close to Russia's border. Tensions are high, folks. They've deployed 30,000 troops, 50 warships, and 220 aircraft. What do you think Putin is thinking of that? Is that going to help the situation? Kind of makes me wonder, right? Kind of makes me wonder. Oh, by the way, Biden, he's sending some new robots, right? Some new drones. At first he was thinking about it. He was mulling it over, sending this new, it's called a Switchblade. It's a kamikaze robot drone, right? Biden wants to send these new kamikazes. Oh, by the way, is that a racist term? Kamikaze drones to Ukraine to use against Russian equipment and the army. Is this involvement? Is this the same involvement that Putin described and said that it will result in future consequences? Folks, meanwhile, several unconfirmed reports allege that Russia's military is already using their drones, called loitering drones or suicidal munition drones, against Ukrainian forces since the invasion kicked off, 3 weeks ago. So we are now in a type of war, folks, that has $6,000. That's pretty cheap for a drone, huh? These drones that Biden wants to send cost about $6,000, a little flying thing with a bomb attached to it. In SHTF Mad Max, domestically here, do you think that for a moment that bureaucrats attacking their own people would hesitate to use such Terminator-style weapons against freedom fighters? Well, if they'll use them against freedom fighters in foreign countries, why wouldn't they use them against freedom fighters here? It's always been a position of mine that people that operate drones for the purpose of killing kind of take all the personal fun out of it, right? You're basically a game-playing chicken shit, sitting back hundreds of miles, not even engaged in the theater and causing death. I wonder how that weighs on their minds, these drone operators. I've been led to understand that the drone operators, largely in the millennial zone, suffer from PTSD. I guess at night, it really bothers them that they're killing real people, right? Wow, very interesting stuff. A lot of different topics, folks. A lot of different topics that kind of fit into this, right? We got so much stuff here. Zelensky, folks. Zelensky appeared live on camera before Congress today, and he invoked Pearl Harbor, which was the blind attack, no warning attack on American forces on a Sunday. No warning, no prior warning. Pearl Harbor attack. He brought up Martin Luther King Jr., which is kind of odd, kind of interesting. And he also brought up 9/11 in an emotional plea for humanitarian no-fly zone to be instituted over Ukraine. Humanitarian? You mean the kind of humanitarian no-fly zone that has U.S. drones? Right? What's a no-fly zone? Does that mean just manned aircraft, or does that include drones? Does it include little drones and big drones like the Reaper? Right? This no-fly zone that everyone wants. Right? So when speaking of Zelensky, a liar and a thief, the leader of Ukraine, gets front and center recognition in front of Congress. Folks, so he could tell unbelievable lies and spread propaganda. Pearl Harbor nor 9/11 are equivalents to the Ukraine issue, which Zelensky brought on his own nation by violating the Donbass Agreement, his own agreement with Russia. Unconscionable, disgusting lies. President Zelensky, folks, also played a heart-wrenching video for the United States Congress, talking about the horrors of the Russian military assault, right? He used pictures or video of babies as war props, folks, to gain sympathetic support, and that to me is disgusting. This was already done with the Gulf War by bringing in a young woman, and she told Congress, tearfully told Congress, how Iraqi soldiers were taking babies out of incubators and throwing them on the floor, out the windows, right? We've already been played like this, but folks, they don't care. They'll play those cards again. Hey, why not use puppies and kittens too, Zelensky? Right? That way that way you can get the Democrats on board, because the Democrats really don't care about babies. Oh yeah, don't forget that, folks. Remember, Democrats love abortion. So what do they care about babies in the hospital? Literally, folks, they're hypocrites and liars. Think about it that way. If they don't care about babies in America, why should they care about babies in Ukraine? Because it's all propaganda and lies and bullshit, designed to make you who are empathetic, designed to make you who actually have a soul give a shit. So these soulless, heartless people can do what they want. And Zelensky, be sure and lie about all you can while you're in front of Congress. Get all the U.S. taxpayers to support your fight for poor, poor Ukraine, folks. War is always, always, and always, folks. War is a rich man's trick to enrich themselves. Period. This is about somebody enriching themselves and governments getting more power. Unbelievable. Today, we have been treated to more unbelievable bullshit. Back and forth. Back and forth, folks. From the time I got up today till now, back and forth. We're going to have peace. No, we're not going to have peace. We're going to have peace. We're going to have an agreement. We're not going to have an agreement, right? The peace plan, folks, was approved apparently. And then, Ukraine rejected it over the proposed neutrality. That's right. Russia said, hey, we're going to stop this. We can come to peace terms if you accept the neutrality agreement. So stock markets all over the place, trading, it's all kind of crazy. Ukraine doesn't want neutrality, folks. They want to pick a side. First and foremost, Zelensky is picking his own side. So if he can get NATO to support him, if he can get NATO to protect him, if he can get other countries to be sympathetic for him, then he can resist Russia. If the world says, you know what, we've had enough of your lies and bullshit, Zelensky, this is just a rich man's game. So you can get rich and other companies can get rich, the big guy and his 10%. If the world stops playing these games and starts saying, look, we don't need more of this shit, then Zelensky has to play ball with Putin. But for now, he is turning down peace. How much better would it be for Zelensky to turn down war and agree with peace and say, we're not going to push to have NATO brought into Ukraine. We're going to remain neutral. Everyone loves Switzerland. They have cheese, they have cows, they have mountains, they have bells. They have a lot of gold, I guess. Switzerland, they like banks, not like they used to, but they still like banks. They like watches, Swiss watches. They like Swiss cheese. Why not be like Switzerland? Be neutral, Zelensky. Stop the war, stop the pain, stop the suffering. Instead, he's pushing for the military-industrial complex and NATO to move into Ukraine, so he's not going to quit. If he really wanted peace, he could have it. He could, but he doesn't. He doesn't. Oh, by the way, you know how Russia was pumping gas into Europe? Russia is responsible for about half, folks, 47%, give or take, of European gas imports according to the most recent Eurostat data. Russia is a big part of that. Well, guess what, folks? Not only did they turn the gas off, they reversed the gas flow on a key pipeline serving Europe. I guess he's sucking out his own gas that he put in the line. Oh, I guess it's not all that funny to Germany anymore, huh? Germany, who wanted to play games. Unbelievable. I've got a bunch more news stories, but let's do this. Let's get to what you want to talk about, right? Let's get to you guys. But first, a QR code. You can snap a picture of that with your phone. You know what that's all about now. We've talked about it enough. So, really, this time, let's get to the questions.
Are you ready?
Man, I've got a lot of things to talk. I mean, I still have an incredible list of things. Maybe we'll get back to it. I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got a solid 8, folks. But let's get to Opie Waddell. Opie, checking in, man. Good to hear from you. He says, John, Psaki said, and he means Jen Psaki, the peppermint communist, the raggedy redhead, the circle jerk, circle back lady. He says, Psaki said, quote, there are no Russian bank accounts that they do not have access to. She did not say there were no accounts, meaning who had these accounts, Opie? We need more information here. She said there are no Russian bank accounts that they do not have access to, meaning the Bidens, meaning biolabs, meaning other players? It's really an important question that I think we can get an answer from you out of, because we really need to hammer these things home. Jen Psaki is an incredible liar, right? When it comes to the truth, right, it is always the first casualty of any war. And Jen Psaki has been a fabulous example of that lying, just absolute lying. Anyways, Bonnie Blue, we'll get back to you, Opie. Get us some more information on what and who. Bonnie Blue says, longtime prepper channel out of East Tennessee called Appalachia's Homestead with Patera reported transaction item limits now at Walmart's. New corporate policy, says Bonnie Blue. 175 to 200 items, and the register shuts down. Depends on the type of Walmart, supercenter or regular, how many items one can purchase per transaction. I would expect to see more of this. More. It's starting to smell like a gradual. How do we want to put this? I mean, is it really rationing, or can they claim that it's something else, right? You know, if you're shopping too much, you're taking up too much of the store's valuable resources. I've always looked at it as a sale. But I do really believe this is part of the coming rationing we're going to have to deal with. You know, right now, 175 to 200, they could ratchet that down to 100. But really, at Walmart, how hard is it to do 100, right? 100 items. It used to be that if you put a bunch of stuff in your basket that was all the same, right? The clerk would say, how many you got there? You'd be like, I got 20 cans of soup. And they would just hit one soup can and then hit 20. Now they take every single item and go past the scanner. Yeah, so if you want to buy a case of tuna fish and a case of beans and, you know, I don't know, any item where you can use a lot of them, yeah, you're gonna run into some of these issues. It's going to become a bigger problem, folks. I think I am going to need to head out this evening and go buy some food supplies. I'll have to leave the glorious, glamorous bunker, my supply of Spam and tuna, and head on up to the surface and look around. I'll report back if I see empty shelves. Vincent Boyle says, Joe Lane, right? At wholesale today, prices are up 15 to 20%. Shortage and rationed foodstuffs, gas, right? at $9.76 a gallon. Is this Putin's fault? Well, interesting, Mr. Boyle, and God bless you over there in Belfast, Ireland. Everything is Putin's fault, or Trump, or the right-wing agenda. It's never the people in charge, right? It's always someone else's fault. The buck never stops at a current politician's desk. Yep, wholesale prices up 15 to 20%. Expect to see more of this, folks. It is coming, right? We're seeing a little bit lower oil prices today because, you know, we're making a deal with Iran. That's really going to fix everything. How hard would it be for Iran, folks, to say, you know what? We changed our mind. Thank you for taking our Republican guard, our esteemed Iranian guard off of the terror list. But we've decided we don't have any oil for you guys. Or we're not accepting dollars. We want gold. Or who knows what they're going to demand. You see, when you have something that the other person wants, you get to be the one who names the price. Oh, you know. Oh my God, he's got the cerveza. Yeah, prices are continuing to go up, folks. That's part of this war. It's economic warfare, resource warfare, supply line warfare, infrastructure warfare. It is full spectrum, multifaceted, 24/7 warfare against us. All right, let's move on if we shall. Jolene, what else have we got up there? Oh, Opie Waldell. Okay, here we go. Speaking of Jen Psaki, wanted to Opie to put up his question with some more specifics. He says, John Shi, meaning Peppermint Patty there, Jen Psaki, was at the podium and was discussing the sanctions on Buck and her. Buck meeting Biden. There were sanctions on her and Biden. She was careful to say there were no accounts that they did not have access to. And this was on Yahoo. Their job is to deny, right? Sanctions right now. If Putin sanctioned Jen Psaki, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Blinken, Hillary Clinton, let's follow this, right? If Putin sanctions their American bank accounts, how does that have any effect? So perhaps Putin was sanctioning their Russian accounts. Could Biden, Hillary, Blinken, Jen Psaki, Hunter Biden, James Comey, other U.S. diplomats, agents, bureaucrats, and elected officials like, I don't know, Mittens Romney, Lindsey Graham, could they have accounts in Russia, in Russian banks? And is that what Putin could be sanctioning so he can confiscate them the way American and European banks are confiscating the wealth and property of Russians? Interesting to know, right? Oh, by the way, Hillary Clinton and other corporate tycoons were investing heavily in Chinese banks and Chinese infrastructure back at the end of the Obama administration. And that came to light when Trump became president, and then it was all kind of swept under the rug because James Comey didn't want to do his job. Ruby Rod Rosenstein had to back off. Christopher Wray backed off. And these untouchable mafia types, folks, we're not talking about Al Capone's mafia. We're talking about the mafia, the mafioso, the mob, criminal, corrupt businesses in D.C. Oh, yeah, folks, you bet. It's true. It's real. It exists. Go ahead and try doing something and find out how quickly they'll stop you, because the government, especially corrupt governments, do not like competition. Oh, my God. It's the middle of the week. It's hump day. And it's hit the fan, and it is mind-numbing and mind-draining. Let's see what you want to talk about next. We've got Latin American preparedness. He says Republican senators have launched investigations on Dr. Fauci. The Republicans may get control over the House and the Senate in the 2022 elections. What are the chances of there being a Benghazi-type investigation on Fauci? Well, I'll tell you what. The Republicans tried voting to get Fauci fired. They wanted to fire the Fauci, and that failed. It absolutely failed. There are turncoat Republicans, and Mittens Romney is one of them. Olympia Snowe is another one. There are many Republicans in there who are rhinos. Mitch McConnell, hello. And in the House, you got people like, Representative McCarthy, the Republican minority leader, rhino from California. Why is it we have rhino leadership in Congress, even as minority speaker or minority leadership? They shouldn't be there, yet they are. How do they maintain this power? Very question. I love asking these questions. So let's just assume, for the sake of discussion, that after the 2022 elections, which are coming up here in just a few more months, folks, let's assume that the Republicans take control of Congress, both the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. The leadership is going to stay the same, undoubtedly, meaning McCarthy would be Speaker of the House, and Mitch McConnell would be, right, the Senate leader. I don't want a Benghazi hearing or a January 6th investigation. I would want Fauci removed and criminal investigations. Congressional investigations, I've never heard of anyone going to jail for crimes committed that were exposed in a congressional investigation. I want criminal investigations looking into all things having to do with the debacle, the baloney that has occurred over the last 2 years because a certain small little tyrant has demanded we obey him, and he has fooled many, many people. And of course, I'm talking about Mr. Bill. Oh no, Mr. Bill, or am I? Right? Remember, we have to be, humorous here, folks. The only thing that is comical is the fact that these people expect you and I to fall for their bullshit. I mean, really, I would have to tie half my brain behind my back and take the other half and douse it with alcohol so it was so drunk it couldn't recognize what's going on, and it would still be able to tell what the heck is going on. Let us move on if we shall. We got Opie Waddell. He says, John, please discuss force majeure, or better known as sorry, senor, no dinero. Force majeure is it's a French term, but it's incorporated into common law. It's incorporated into statutory law. It's a term that's put into contracts that basically allows someone out of contractual obligations. For example, the truckers in Italy, their big trucking firms will sign a contract. Say Walmart needs to move 10,000 trucks or trailers around the country, but they've only got 9,000 trucks. So they'll contract with a very large trucking firm for those last 1,000 trucks. And they'll say, this is what we're willing to pay per mile or per trip. And so the trucking company will come back with a bid. Several different companies will come back with bids and say, we would like to haul those trucks for you, Mr. Walmart. And so they put into this, though, a clause, right, that if fuel exceeds a certain dollar amount, that they will not continue the operations, right? It has to be something extreme. So you would think that they would bid the job at a much higher rate or cost of fuel, right? So they don't have to declare themselves, right, incapable of fulfilling the contract. They would much rather make money and do the job than declare force majeure or an act of God, something preventing them from continuing. I mean, other things other than the cost of fuel that could stop the Italian truckers, which, they claim force majeure and we're not making deliveries. It could be, earthquake happened and all the bridges that crossed the Mississippi cracked and fell in the water. So we can't get our trucks or trains across the river, basically a force majeure type situation. It's out of our control. It's too big to be absorbed in the contract. But yeah, it basically works as sorry, senor, no dinero. And it kind of also falls along the line of the concept of default, right? It's not my fault. It's nobody's fault, right? But we're just not going to do it. So we're going to see a lot of this, folks, whether it's defaulting on loans or companies screaming force majeure. We can't help it. We can't continue in business. We can't fulfill contracts, right? Either you can't fulfill a contract or you can't make a payment. Folks, this is because we have systemic failure of our economic system, our monetary system, our financial system, our infrastructure, our energy. You need energy to do everything. And that system is failing, not because the energy is not available, folks, because of piss poor planning, because of greed, and because of utter incompetence. Utter incompetence. That's what we have, folks. Hopefully that helps satisfy your desire for information, understanding what is a default, right? What is force majeure? What is an act of God, right? Mr. Sean E. Momini checks in. He says, I feel gold and silver will be less important than barter items in SHTF. What are your thoughts? Am I not thinking far enough ahead? Well, I'll tell you what. That light just got really bright, man. Maybe I'm having like a power surge here. You remember SHTF is a process. We start here in normal world and it gets worse and 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 worse. Now, in order to get out, to take off and leave SHTF, it also is going to be a process. Things are as bad as they could possibly be, and then they'll slowly get better. Okay, so in the middle, in the worst parts of SHTF, the worst parts, gold and silver are going to be practically without any value. Because in the worst parts of SHTF, people are going to need those items, food, water, right? People are going to need medicine. They're going to need a means of self-defense. Those items will be far more valuable in terms of their desirability than gold and silver. So when you ask, am I not thinking far enough ahead? No, you're correct and basically incorrect, and we all are at the same time. It's just what part of SHTF are you thinking about? The part where everything is normal, the part where things are really bad in the middle, or the part where things are starting to straighten up at the very end of SHTF? After we get to the worst part and things start to slowly get better and better and better. Once things start to slowly get better, then people say, okay, food is not as big of an issue as it used to be. Now, wealth, we can start thinking about wealth again. Again, this is kind of like Maslow's hierarchy. Maslow's hierarchy is a pyramid. Okay, and the bottom rung is food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. That's the bottom. Next comes more forms of security, like better weaponry, or perhaps government and police. And then after that, society can become more, shall we say, civilized, right? You start getting into higher thoughts and concept, representative government, charity, right? And then ultimately it's self-actualization, high levels of philosophy, right? Understanding the universe, your place in it with God, all of these, the highest levels. You won't have time to think about stuff if you're just worried about your next meal, right? So yeah, in the worst parts of SHTF, right in the thick, in the center of it, yeah, a can of beans is going to be way more valuable to you than a pound of gold. But when things start looking up, when the world starts looking better over here at the end of the chart, people are going to be like, you know what, that gold, yeah, that is really valuable now. All right, so yeah, it just depends on where your thinking is. Far ahead, precious metals. In the middle of the shit, you better have some prep items that are edible or help defend you. Okay, let us move on, if we shall. We got Bonnie Blue 2A checking in. Uh-oh. She says, no one talking about the 2.2 million people out of power in northern Japan following the 7.2 earthquake today. I'll talk about it. They had a massive earthquake off the coast of Fukushima. 7.2, 7.3 earthquake. I think it was 16 kilometers deep. Or no, was it 40 something kilometers deep? Anyway, interesting, massive earthquake, no tidal wave, no tsunami, no destruction, no nay. Makes me wonder. Anyways, leaving earthquake sciences behind, it did cause some power outages in Japan. Now, Japan, folks, is on the Pacific Rim of Fire. Japan is covered in volcanoes. Japan is covered in active volcanoes. Japan has active fault lines. In fact, you can find videos on YouTube of Japan having earthquakes where people are walking around and literally the cracks between pavement and cement move like this back and forth, and it pumps and mud comes out of the ground, all kinds of stuff. Japan is a very interesting nation, socially, economically, geographically, tectonically. Japan is a very interesting place. Yeah, there's 2.2 million people out of power. Tokyo, I think, went dark for a little while. But there was no radiation leak, no radiation explosion. There were no Russians attacking, no Godzilla, no King Kong, no Mothra, no Rodon, right? Japan is used to earthquakes, folks. But in a world where the media wants you to feel fear and chaos, they will definitely try and scare the shit out of you. I think the only people that got scared on this side of the ocean were people who are invested in uranium, because once again, the fear of Fukushima, oh my gosh, which caused an incredible shutdown of nuclear reactors around the world for fear that it could happen anywhere, anytime. And consequently, I guess the good part of that trouble is that safety precautions, equipment has really, really stepped up in nuclear reactors, backup power systems, safety shutdowns, all becoming automated, all good stuff. Around the world, they've put these measures in place so we don't have another Fukushima type accident. Additionally, like in the United States of America, there's a company called, I think, Lightbridge. They're making a new nuclear reactor fuel that is much safer. I think it's like meltdown proof. They're really developing these nuclear technologies. On top of that, folks, small modular reactors. A lot of really good stuff there that they're coming up with in terms of fixing our power problems. The technology exists, folks, but the government has not invested in it. Industry hasn't invested in it to the extent it should, and so we're behind the curve. Like I believe it was last year, someone asked a U.S. senator and said, when do we need all of these new nuclear reactors to be brought online? He said like 10 years ago, meaning, yeah, we're way behind our infrastructure. You want to, right, like the idiot Pete Buttgagger. He says, oh, you don't have enough money to buy gas, huh? Well, you could solve that problem by buying an electric car. Okay, so I don't have money for $100 in fuel, but I have $50,000 to buy an EV. What a jackass. Literally, folks, jackass. This is where the gross incompetence, poor planning, if you want to be generous to these people, comes in. They're so greedy and stupid. All they want to do is make money today, and they're not looking forward into the future for America's needs. Hey, you want to sell EVs? You want to reduce carbon and all that stuff? How are you going to power these cars? Where's this power going to come from? Frickin' windmills? No. Solar panels? No. That does not produce enough base load power to run the country. Period. Unbelievable, folks. The ignorance on the part of those who are elected, and they think they're the experts. Okay. We did the Everybody Stump John, and Mr. T has checked in. He says we should play that. He says, so he thought he'd create a short little clip to introduce the segment, just a sample, something he wants me to take a look at. Again, folks, it was like the world we're in right now is bizarro land. Tell a lie, tell a truth, right? If you were to write down one lie and one truth, right, and do that, one lie, one truth, and then see if I can guess which one is the lie and which one is the truth. Like one would be, right here, here's a lie. The U.S. is going to send people to the moon by 2025. And right, that would be the truth. They say they're going to do that, right? And then the lie is Americans can afford, right, electric vehicles so they don't have to pay for gas. Which one doesn't make any sense? Which is the lie? Anyways, something like that. It's something I would like to do to have more fun with the facts and expose the lies, put me to the test. It's all good stuff. Just unbelievable. And Darcy checks in. Darcy, I got your message and your PayPal donation. She says, hello, John, want to ensure that you receive this. So everything is all unicorns and rainbows. Everything is all good, Darcy. Thank you very much. Folks, there's so many of you out there supporting all of our efforts here on the Prepared Mind channel. We need your support. We need you to pass the word on, to share, etc. I've still got more stuff. Oh my God, I've still got more things to talk about. I don't want to let these things pass, right? I mean, get this, more SHTF. Eli Lilly, another big pharmaceutical company, like Pfizer and Moderna and AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson, right? Eli Lilly is now halting sales of drugs in Russia. Well, they're halting the sales of all non-essential drugs. I read that, and the first thing that popped into my head is, aren't all drugs essential? If they're not essential, why the fuck are you selling it? Right? If it's not essential, right? If I've got a really bad headache, an aspirin becomes a pretty essential item, because all medications are supposed to treat health issues and alleviate suffering. Hello, Eli Lilly. But that is the virtue signaling bullshit that we've been talking about. Eli Lilly, you can go suck it, Wow. What is a typical Democrat? Oh my God, I have to stop because Serge wants to play the game. He says, one lie, one truth. U.S. is forming fascism. Russia is fighting fascism. In my opinion, Russia is fighting fascism. That is a truth. The U.S. is fighting fascism. You put forming. I think you meant to say fighting fascism. U.S. is fighting fascism, or Russia is fighting fascism. Fascism, folks, is not people goose-stepping wearing swastikas on their arms. Those are Nazis, right? Nazis. Now, they are social fascists. Nazis are, folks. Nazis are social fascists. What does that mean? It's a merger of interest between mega corporations and the government, and they benefit one another. The corporation gives products and services to the government, so the government has more power and authority, and the government gives contracts to those businesses so the businesses make money. That is socialist fascism, social fascism, right? So when we have a bunch of corporations going into Ukraine, cutting deals with Zelensky that benefit Zelensky's government with power, and those companies make money and get contracts, right? Like maybe biolabs, for example. They cut a nice big fat deal. Maybe some big pharmaceutical company, we just mentioned one a moment ago, and many others. Maybe they're cutting deals, right? And so is the U.S. fighting fascism, folks? The U.S. is fighting Putin, and Putin is trying to what? He claimed he is denazifying or fighting fascism in Ukraine. So I think I answered that one right. Oh, by the way, you need to put in your answer to Jolene, you need to put in there which one you think is true, which one you think is false. Either way, so that Jolene, well, she doesn't want to show that to me. She doesn't want to give me the answers. But anyways, I think that's great, Serge. Thank you for being the first one to play One Truth, One Lie. I think it's going to be fun to do that, folks, because we can point out the hypocrisy, the lies, and we can for ourselves decide what is true and what is not. All right. Yeah. And speaking of that, are Democrats good Americans? Are Democrats patriotic? What does a typical Democrat think of the United States, our Constitution? What does a typical Democrat think of freedom and liberty? What does the typical Democrat think is patriotic? Well, we have a typical, as far as I'm concerned, Democrat couple. They tried to sell U.S. submarine secrets to Brazil. That's right. The husband was an engineer for the military-industrial complex, and the wife was a teacher. While I think teachers can be fantastic people, I just happen to think a lot of them are not. Obviously, they love to teach children to hate themselves and hate their parents, and to hate their genitals, too. But here we are, folks. Headline says it all. Treasonous couple who tried to sell U.S. submarine secrets to Brazil were also BLM supporters and Trump haters. I guess that is an example of a typical Democrat in the United States of America. Wow. Just absolutely wow. And I can't leave this one alone because it's coming up. The Biden administration, folks, are they typical Democrats? Oh, certainly. Do they love America? Oh, certainly not. The Biden administration is blocking July 4th fireworks at Mount Rushmore for a second year in a row. Nationalism, folks, not National Socialism, which is the Nazi party. Nationalism, the love for one's country. It's a very simple idea. The 4th of July, folks, is a celebration of our Declaration of Independence from tyranny. Washington, Jefferson, and all are considered great Americans, and they're celebrated for their efforts, and their faces are on Mount Rushmore. And it's easy to see why Democrats and Biden hate them. They hate the 4th of July, and they want to deny the love of America shown on the 4th at this great monument to liberty. So, fuck Joe Biden. And Democrats who hate this country, and they demonstrate it every day by committing acts of treason, like selling our country's national secrets, by selling our valuable resources, by entering into special agreements and having bank accounts in Russia while they plunder and steal and hide things. Unbelievable what's going on, folks. Unbelievable. I still have a ton of stuff, and we're out of time. Don't worry. Don't worry, folks. We'll get to it. Maybe I'll do some more special broadcasts. I'll certainly be back bright and early, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, so we can talk about what is happening so you can stay ahead of the game. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, and a plan. That's being prepared. That's not being a gun nut. It's about seeing what's really happening and taking action to protect yourself, your family, your loved ones, your nation, etc. You know, being a good American, a patriot, a nationalist. How about that? You guys be cool. Semper Fi, and Godspeed to all.